Today's episode of Behind the Numbers is brought to you by Hafley Flanagan. Hafley Flanagan is a full-service accounting firm that's been serving our clients since 1967. We are not your typical accounting firm. Our services extend well beyond tax and audit to include valuation services, strategic and succession planning, leadership development, and more. When you work with Hafley Flanagan, we help you realize your long-term goals. Learn more at hfco.com or call 856-722-5300.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Behind the Numbers. My name is Dave Bookbinder. We're coming to you live from the RVN television studios, and I've got somebody sitting here to my right. He is Merrick Rosenberg, the CEO of Take Flight Learning, and today we're going to be talking about the power of your personality. Merrick, thank you so much for joining us today on Behind the Numbers.
Yeah, it's so good to be here.
Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and a little bit about Take Flight Learning?
Sure. Well, I teach people about who they are through the power of personality, and I travel around the world speaking at events and use what I think is a very simple, easy model to frame out our personality, and it's used for leadership training, for team building, creating culture, and it's just all about understanding yourself, understanding others, and building strong relationships.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely interesting and unique, and I can't wait to get to it. But I just want to set the stage for the audience who may not be familiar with the underpinnings of DISC, D-I-S-C. Can you just help them to understand that?
DISC has been around since the early 1900s, and it's a simple model for understanding our personality. There's 4 core styles. Nobody owns DISC, which is fascinating. It's just out there in the public domain. So you see a lot of different versions of DISC personality assessments, and people have created training programs to help us understand ourselves and read people so we can communicate better with the people around us.
Okay, so you took DISC and you basically reimagined it.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
So, you have these letters, and it's almost like an alphabet soup. Am I a D, an I, an S, or a C? And you have to memorize it. You've got to memorize what the D is.
Yeah.
For me, I thought, it's got to be visual, it's got to be simple and easy and sticky. And I replaced the letters, I swapped them out and swapped in 4 birds, eagles, parrots, doves, and owls, which are very intuitive, and it just makes it simple for people to remember and use.
Okay, well, now that you've laid out the framework, now we've got to unpack each one, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Let's start with the eagle.
Yeah.
So let's do this together. If you're
going to regret this.
I'm ready. Here we go. If someone has the personality of an eagle, what do you think they would be like? What do you think some of their traits would be?
Well, I'm from Philly, man, so I'm thinking Brian Dawkins.
There you go. So, yeah. And it's fun. I've actually got a chance to work with the eagles, and they're not all eagles, which is kind of fun. Well, yeah. What do you think? I mean, if you had someone who's a personality...
Yeah, eagles they're strong, they're authoritarian, yeah. They're the ones, they're the typical personification of a CEO, if you will, in my head.
Yeah, the classic take charge, direct, confident person. Yeah. So next up we've got parrots, very different energy than an eagle.
Yeah, so in my mind, the parrot is the one who's the more sociable. They're the ones who are likely to lead the birthday parties in the cafeterias.
They're remembering every birthday, they're celebrating them,
yeah.
And they're the person who's got a lot of energy, they're optimistic. For the parrot, it's all good.
Right.
What could happen?
Right.
They take risks, they're social, they're talkative, they're outgoing.
Right.
So next up, we have the dove. Very different energy from an outgoing parrot and that confident eagle.
Yeah, so the dove is I don't want to say quiet and reserved, but they're the ones who are the peacemakers. They're the ones who at the family dinners are trying to make sure that Aunt Jessie is talking to Uncle Fred and things like that.
They're smoothing it out. They are all about harmony, and you're absolutely right. They're peacemakers. They also are reserved. They're calm and relaxed. They just want everybody to get along. So last one, the owl. So how about this? First word comes to mind when you think of an owl.
Temple.
Temple, yeah.
Temple University.
Yeah, it's true. Absolutely.
Sorry. Yeah, the second thought was the Tootsie Roll thing. That's why I said you don't want to do this with me.
Yes, and here's the thing. Every owl ever drawn, every cartoon owl is pictured as wise. And it's not that this is the wise or intelligent style, but there's something about owls. They're thoughtful, they're processing, they're taking it in. They're trying to understand the world around them. If they're going to do something, it's going to be right.
Yeah, wasn't there an owl in the Winnie the Pooh story?
Yeah, and once again, very logical, analytical. That is exactly right.
Yeah, okay. So now that we've got these 4 different styles, how do we know who we're dealing with when we're having a conversation? I mean, I guess when you're dealing with an eagle, that's pretty transparent, but I'm going to let you answer the question. You're the expert here.
You can see it in everything they do. I mean, even in their body language. If I were to walk up to you and say, "Hi, nice to meet you, Merrick Rosenberg," I mean, you could feel that eagle energy. But if I approached you and I said, "Hi, how are you? It's so nice to meet you, Merrick Rosenberg," there's a very big energy shift there, and you could feel that dove. Whereas if I walked up and said, "Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you, Merrick Rosenberg," that parrot enthusiasm, and the owl, very businesslike, "Hi, nice to meet you." So body language, tone, once you know the styles, you can read them very quickly.
So how do we now use this in day-to-day business communication, or right people, right seat, if you will, Merrick?
So imagine you are a leader and you're an owl leader. Is it likely that you create a very structured, process-driven, key performance indicators, data-driven decisions, tracking processes? If you're an owl, is that the environment you're likely to create? Sure. But imagine you're managing an entire team of parrots. How would they feel in that kind of environment? Probably boxed in and constrained. And our challenge is that we impose our style on others, and we do it all the time. There's a great George Carlin quote. He said, "Everyone driving slower than me is an idiot. Everyone driving faster than me is a maniac."
Exactly.
And we think our way is the right way, but we also think that if I need something, other people need it too. So that owl who's creating structure is thinking, these people, my staff, they need structure. I'm helping them. But if you're managing someone different than you, they may have different needs. And so understanding the styles allows you to treat people the way they need to be treated, or if you're a manager, manage people the way they need to be treated.
Talk to me about a salesperson. I think most people have a general preconceived notion of what a salesperson persona might look like. Is that true? Is there a standard expectation?
There is no doubt that when I work with sales teams, there are more parrots than any other style. But it doesn't mean that you need to be a parrot to be a successful salesperson. There are different phases in the sales process that each of the styles needs to shine. And in a sense, I talk about being the chameleon. As a salesperson, you need to be adaptable and flexible. Because when you open that sales call, maybe you turn on the dove and you're building rapport. And then all of a sudden now you've got to present the features, the benefits, the details of what you do. Now you're in owl mode. Well, you want to have energy and show passion and enthusiasm, dial up the parrot. And you got to close the deal. That's when you need the eagle. The most successful salespeople can tap into all of the styles, and they tap into them at the right time. So it's not just, okay, I'm a parrot. If I stayed in, you're going to love it. It's amazing. That kind of mode the entire time. I'm not going to appeal to everyone who I'm trying to sell.
Yeah, and you anticipate exactly where I wanted to go next, because I wanted to ask you if these personality styles have like a continuum, if you will. Like, can you move from one to another? And you just described that there are situations where you certainly need to or want to. Do we all have that innate ability, or if you're wired to be an eagle, you're an eagle, period?
Well, there's no doubt we have all 4 styles within us. So when we're being flexible and adaptable, we need to find that part of ourselves. So let's say you are, in fact, an eagle, and you're direct and you're fast. You want to make quick decisions. People walk into your office, and they have to be brief, be brilliant, be gone. Get to the point and get out. And if they talk long and they're belaboring the point, the eagle's kind of fast forwarding till the end of the story. Like, so what do you need? You want this. This is the bottom line. This is what you're asking for. This is the action step. But let's say you are comforting a child who is sick. You can't just say, get over it. You have to be empathetic.
Right.
And I will bet you that they can find that part of themselves and dial that up. Well, if you can be empathetic with a sick child in the workplace, when you have a coworker who needs support, you have to find that part of you, tap into it, and display it. The challenge is leaders, or anyone who is stuck in their style and lacks flexibility, they're going to have a hard time getting along with a wide range of people. You have to have that style flexibility.
Yeah. And so being a chameleon sounds like not only a necessity, but maybe even aspirational so that you can navigate the different circumstances.
And we're all working towards that.
Yeah.
We all are working towards being able to get along with anyone. In fact, the most effective leaders, the most effective salespeople, it doesn't matter what role you play in an organization. I mean, imagine I'm announcing change to an organization. Well, I'm a parrot, so if I got up in front of a group and I was saying to them, you are gonna love it, it's gonna be amazing, the owls are looking at me like, I don't even know what we're doing. But if I walked up in front of that group and I said, all right, bottom line, here's what we're changing, here's when we're changing it, here's how it works. This changes everything, it's going to be fantastic, you're gonna love it. Look, I know it's new, we'll be there for you, we'll support you. Let me walk you through the details and tell you exactly how it's gonna work. If I can learn how to communicate so that I can connect with everyone, I just hit the eagle, the parrot, the dove, and the owl in a very short period of time. And if you can communicate in all four styles, guess who you appeal to?
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah, and that's the power. If I had just walked out there, communicated as a parrot, I may have only reached a percentage of the audience.
It's interesting because you always hear you can't be all things to all people, but maybe you really can if you do it the right way.
We tune in when our hardwiring gets triggered. So if I'm talking to you and you're an owl, when I get into the details in the process, you're going to be like, oh, tell me about it. But you may not tune in if I'm in high energy parrot rah-rah mode.
Yeah.
And so if I can communicate in your style, you are going to tune in. And it does take energy. I always say to sales folks, I tell them, look, if you're selling someone and your style is different from theirs, one of you is going to leave that interaction exhausted, and it better be you. Because flexing does take energy, but you're going to be far more successful if you are adapting to the person you're talking to.
Yeah. Merrick, tell folks out there in the audience how they can contact you if they want to learn more about you, work with you, or even have you come on stage and present.
Sure. You can go to takeflightlearning.com and see a wide range of training programs based on the eagles, parrots, doves, and owls.
Lots of good stuff. Merrick, you sit there. We're going to have to take a quick break, but we're going to come back for more. You out there watching and listening, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on Behind the Numbers.
Un ataque cerebral puede ser fácil de detectar. Su ser querido no logra hablar o quizás no puede moverse, pero existe otro síntoma de ataque cerebral que muchos de nosotros no vemos. Se llama negligencia espacial y puede ocurrir durante o después de un ataque cerebral, causando movimientos visuales distorsionados. Afortunadamente, existe una solución que utiliza tecnología óptica basada en prismas durante la rehabilitación. Si usted o su ser querido experimenta un ataque cerebral, pregúntele a su doctor sobre la negligencia espacial. Encuentre más información en kesslerfoundation.org.
Wait, I have you surrounded. You just gonna stand there, or are you gonna take your loan back?
We're gonna take it back.
We're gonna take it back.
With Scott's Turf Builder Triple Action, it gets 3 jobs done at once. Kills weeds, prevents crabgrass, and keeps your lawn growing strong. Glorious!
No.
Get a bag of Scott's Triple Action today. It's guaranteed.
Feed your lawn.
And Doug.
Hey, man. Nice base. Clearly you're a safe driver. You could save hundreds for safe driving with Liberty Mutual. They customize your car insurance, so you only pay for what you need. Woo! We gotta go again.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
I learned how quickly everything can be taken away. 1 minute, I was playing college football. The next, I was paralyzed. I'm Eric LeGrand. I believe I will walk again, but also know what I can do now. I'm applying my love of the game as a sports broadcaster and inspiring others along the way. Only my abilities matter. Visit Kessler Foundation on Facebook and tell us your abilities. And go to KesslerFoundation.org for all.
And welcome back to Behind the Numbers. We are talking about the power of personality. I'm Dave Bookbinder. He is Merrick Rosenberg. And Merrick, I'm going to jump back in on the conversation that we wrapped at the beginning of the first segment here. And I wanted to ask you, when you're working with your clients, you're working with a lot of leaders, are you seeing any particular themes in terms of what their persona is, and then the challenges in them moving into that chameleon mode? Is there any recurring theme?
What's interesting, what's changing is that years ago, there was no doubt, overwhelmingly, there were a lot of eagles, especially as CEOs. That is changing dramatically, especially as millennials and Gen Z are entrepreneurs rising to the level of running their organization. We are seeing a lot more doves than I've ever seen before in high leadership positions in organizations. And I think we're going to keep seeing that the dove cares about culture, they care about environment, and if this generation doesn't like the environment, guess what they do? They leave, and doves are focused on the environment. So the shift we're seeing is a focus on culture and style at the top, which is, to me, is fascinating.
Yeah, and you, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're able to help develop a program for companies so that when they're looking to hire people in the right fit mode, you can design the position description and help them to identify the persona that they're dealing with so you get that right fit, yes?
Yeah, we talk to to clients a lot about what are you looking for? Like what style will really shine in that role?
Yeah, gotcha. Can I ask you how we take this outside of work into our personal communications? Because I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there thinking, you know, I live with someone who is this way and I'm this way, and sometimes we just butt heads and can't really communicate.
What I always find funny is I go to a conference, I'm speaking at a corporate event, I sit down afterwards to sign books, people come over and ask me questions. 90% of the questions are about their spouse or their child. Yeah. we're in corporate America, and yet they're asking about their family. And I think that is amazing because they're taking it and they're applying it. You take couples. To me, one of the things I love is that opposites attract. Eagles and doves tend to be married most often, and parrots and owls tend to be married most often. I didn't say happily married, but just happen to be married. And what we find is that when you have a couple, they are drawn to each other because it's almost like you complete me. You're the other half, yin and yang. And in easy times, when you're getting to know each other, you complement each other and it's enjoyable. You bring something I don't bring. It's the challenging times where we don't get drawn to each other, but rather we repel each other. And the most successful couples that really last are the couples that understand each other. They value the fact that you are different from me, and that's a good thing. And the fact that you look at the world differently is a good thing. And they don't judge each other. And when we replace that judgment with acceptance, that's when conflict smooths out. Couples who look at each other and go, why do you have to do that? Why do you act that way? Why can't you do this? Those are the couples that get in trouble because they don't value the differences.
Yeah, and this is more than just guys are wired this way and gals are wired that way.
It fascinates me that there's no correlation between gender and style. A stereotype would say, okay, there's more men who are eagles and women who are doves. And the reality is that's just not true. There are just as many men who are doves as women who are eagles. Although sometimes the time period in which we live may not allow us to feel that way. In other words, if you were a woman in the workplace in the 1950s and you were a strong eagle, that may not have worked out so well for you. Now, I'm not saying we're 100% there, but it's much better than 1950. And it's not that there are more women who are eagles today, it's that it's more acceptable today for a woman to be an eagle than in 1950. And so they're stepping into the power of who they are, being the best version of themselves instead of adapting to what culture says you're supposed to be.
Yeah. And one of the great ways to exemplify these personality styles and the birds that you just discussed is you have a movie called Bird Brains, Inc. And I got the opportunity to see it, and I thank you for that. It is really clever, really well done, and it really outlines exactly how these personality styles interact in a situation of, I'll call it crisis. Talk about the movie.
Yeah, I had this vision of bringing the styles to life. Because we now are using birds, we're not using letters, we get to actually see the styles in action, see ourselves in the story. I never imagined that it would literally win 21 film festival awards, including 4 for Best Short, international film festivals. That's just, to write a movie and just really want to get it out there to teach people about themselves, that has taken on a life of its own. And it's a fun movie. You get to see these 4 styles. They're played with puppets. I mean, professional, these are top quality. Like if you went to a Broadway show, this is what you'd be looking at. And it's just amazing. It was very fun for me to be sitting at a desk in a company called Bird Brains, Inc., across from an eagle and having a conversation. Right. I've lived with these birds for so long, and now they're talking to me. It was amazing.
And that is so surreal and cool at the same time. But talk about the chameleon, because there is a chameleon in that film as well.
The chameleon is that character who understands all four styles. They, as you said, it's the aspirational place to be. It's the person who understands how to be flexible, how to be adaptable, recognizing that you can't impose your style on others. And the chameleon is the CEO of this organization and wants to teach the staff about being flexible and being adaptable and working together.
Yeah. Merrick, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who want to know how they can get in touch with you and work with you. What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, you could go to birdbrainsinc.com. That's a place where you can check out the movie, or takeflightlearning.com, and you can learn about our training programs and how we work with companies.
Yeah, definitely check that out. And today's episode of Behind the Numbers is sponsored by Hafley Flanagan, and I understand that you are a client of the firm.
Absolutely. Over the years, we've worked with a couple accounting firms, and I have to say, I've never had an organization that wasn't just transactional. We've worked with other organizations, and they did our taxes, we sent them our stuff, and it came back. The wisdom and advice that we received, I remember when we switched and started using the services of Hafley Flanagan, it was like we had acquired a wisdom of what we should have been doing all of those years. It was unbelievable how much money we saved, because we were like, why doesn't anybody tell us this? Well, they're just doing your taxes. Well, for me, I feel like we have a partner, and it's really changed the way we run our business.
That's wonderful, and I know that they will appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. So in your spare time, you've written a few books, 8 of them.
Yes.
Tell us.
The Chameleon is the book where I have 22 fables. Each fable teaches a different lesson of the styles, and that's a great one, to kind of starter book to learn about the eagles, parrots, doves, and owls. But I'm really proud of Which Bird Are You?, which is a children's book. If there's anything I hear more than any statement, is I wish I knew this when I was younger. And I wanted to bring the styles to kids. And it talks about the eagle kingdom and the parrot kingdom and the dove and owl, and the evil vulturins are coming, and teaches them about the styles. And another one, which was kind of just a fun project, was to look at the presidency through the lens of the 4 styles and look at, is there one style that's likely to win the presidency based on style? And actually, there are clear patterns. And it's a book called Personality Wins: Who Will Take the White House and How We Know.
Yeah, and we're not going to discuss that here on camera, but I will tell you folks out there, if you're watching and listening, it's an interesting conversation and it's an interesting read. You're not going to want to miss that. Merrick, I want you to take us inside one of your workshops so people can get a feel for, like, how do you do this with your clients?
It starts off as one would suspect. You have to learn what the 4 styles are all about. What are the traits of the eagle, parrot, dove, owl? But where it really takes off is when we take the styles and link them to the skills that you use every day. So it's not just, let's memorize a model. It's not about a model. It's not about graphs in a report. It's about application. So if I'm working with leaders, it's how do you delegate? How do you give feedback? How do you hold people accountable using the 4 styles? If I'm talking to salespeople, it's how do you open the sales call? How do you close the deal? How do you build relationships using the styles? If it's a general audience, it's just we're rolling this out in the company. It's how do you work with people? How do you talk to people? How do you create a great team using the styles? And there's this notion of what wires together fires together. So if we can wire the 4 styles to the skills we use every day, not just here's the birds, learn them. It's let's learn them based on the skill set that's going to help us be successful. When we go to give feedback, the styles trigger, we use them. When I'm in a sales call and I'm opening the sales call, I recognize, oh, I'm a parrot, they're an owl, got it. It triggers and I use it. So it's really all about linking the styles to the skills that we're using.
Yeah, and you do a lot of public speaking, and you come on stage, presumably in your innate persona, parrot, I'm presuming, and you're speaking to an audience that's comprised of everything.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for that, and how do you deliver when you're speaking to a room that's comprised of multiple personality styles, and you may not even know who's who in the room?
For me, unless I'm talking to a group that is a very defined group, like this is a group of engineers and I know there's going to be a lot of owls in this room, I make sure I hit them all. I have moments where I talk about Here's how you get better results using the styles. I have moments of humor and fun, and that's the parrot, and telling stories. I have moments where we talk about how do you use this in your family and with your child or with a spouse, and to really create deep, meaningful connection. And that's for the dove. For the owl, I'll talk about the history. I talk about how to use it. I'll share statistics about the style. And I talk about step-by-step, how do you use it, how do you apply it in your world. So you have to hit them all, and when you do, you connect with everyone.
Yeah. And what are some of the outcomes that your clients have experienced in going through this program and implementing inside their organizations?
I think from an organizational perspective, the one statement we hear more than any other is the drama went away. I love turning to audiences and saying, look, which creates more stress for you? The lack of skill of your people or the drama created by how people work together? And of course, there's no comparison. Once they understand each other, the judgment goes away. People accept who they are. People sit in the right seat on the bus. They use their skills, and the drama melts away. From an organizational perspective, that is absolutely the number one statement we hear.
That's fantastic. Talk a little bit about some of the common challenges that folks in the audience may have in their day-to-day activities now that they're aware of the different personality styles and the different communication styles. And hopefully when they shake someone's hand, like you said earlier in the first segment, they'll recognize what their style is. But you've seen so many situations. What can you tell the audience to do in their day-to-day activity that may be actionable advice right now?
The most important thing is don't impose your style on others. If I meet someone, I recognize I'm a parrot, this person is an eagle, I'm going to be direct, I'm going to be assertive, I'm going to call it like it is. If I meet someone and I recognize this person is the dove, I soften my voice, I talk to them, I ask them about them. Whereas the eagle, I get right to the point. If I recognize someone's an owl, I stick to the facts, I provide detail, I provide information. Don't impose your style on others. Recognize their style, flex and adapt to who they are.
Yeah, and we're getting down to the very short strokes here because time flies on Behind the Numbers. But I wanted to kind of close this out with you on the discussion of building teams. So inside organizations, you'll put together different teams, project teams, if you will. Folks are going to have to collaborate. How important is it to select the proper personality styles on working on specific tasks?
What happens is when you are working on a task that resonates with who you are, it feeds you and it energizes you. When you're working out of your style, it's exhausting. Imagine a parrot reading spreadsheets all day, sitting in a cubicle, no human interaction. And that's the task you have delegated them that they're going to work on in that mode for the next 3 weeks. They're going to be absolutely exhausted every day. Whereas if you gave that task to an owl, they go home and they're like, oh, that was a good day. I made some great connections, understood the data. Awesome. If you match the style with the role, it feeds you. If you are working out of your role, it drains you. When you're putting people in seats on the bus, put them in the right seat that their style can shine.
Yeah, that resonates. I remember earlier in the career watching certain salespeople being assigned the administrative duties of expense reports and time management and all of that, spreadsheet work, and their heads were going to explode.
This is why we have account managers who are often owls and salespeople who are the parrots. They complement each other. Probably that parrot's like, thank you. I don't have to do all this detailed work, and they can just go out and talk to people and sell. That's how you complement each other so that you get the best of both people.
Yeah, awesome. Merrick, unfortunately, we are out of time here on Behind the Numbers, but I can't thank you enough for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. We've been talking about the power of your personality with Merrick Rosenberg, who's the CEO of Take Flight Learning. Definitely check out their website and all the great materials that you will find there. Today's episode was brought to you by Hafley Flanagan, who Merrick talked about briefly. I want to thank them for sponsoring this episode. I want to thank the Big Cheese for running the board today, for making the program go smoothly, as he always does. And of course, I want to thank you, the audience. We can't do this without you. My name is Dave Bookbinder, and I'm the one my clients turn to when they want to know what their most important assets are worth. So if you're a business owner and you don't know what your business is worth, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. That's all we have for today, folks. We'll see you next time on Behind the Numbers. Take care.
Today's episode of Behind the Numbers is brought to you by Hafley Flanagan. Hafley Flanagan is a full-service accounting firm that's been serving our clients since 1967. We are not your typical accounting firm. Our services extend well beyond tax and audit to include valuation services, strategic and succession planning, leadership development, and more. When you work with Hafley Flanagan, we help you realize your long-term goals. Learn more at hfco.com or call 856-722-5300.